Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Seth Galina joining you guys for a quarterback showcase show here after week 6. We got some interesting players to talk about here. We got Caleb Williams' best day yet in the NFL in London. Maybe they just play every game overseas. I don't know. Maybe it'll help Caleb Williams. Could help out the victory. I don't know. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson, how he is an MVP candidate. He won the MVP last year. And this year, through 6 games, even better than the start he had last season. We'll dig into that a little bit. And then we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers, new offensive coordinator, new play caller, how it looked. It was a disappointing loss there in New York on Monday Night Football, but was the offense different? Did we see what we needed to see from Aaron Rodgers specifically? We're going to dig into those 3 topics and probably a little more just as a result. Seth, how are we doing today, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm big chillin'. Here, always excited to talk about quarterbacks here with you. And I want to start with Caleb Williams. And, I think a lot of people freaked out about Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, guy who was, just anointed. He was going to come in. He was just going to light the world on fire. And, of course, it never works out like that immediately. But when you look at Caleb Williams, he had a fantastic day against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the London game. 82.8 passing grade in this one, 87.9 overall offensive grade. Those were both the highest marks that we have seen yet through his young NFL career. And, when you look at how he has progressed throughout the season, from week 2 on, Seth, it's been a little bit better every time. The PFF grades, the passing grades, and the overall grades, they've just been going up very steadily till we got a fantastic performance against Jacksonville this past week. So when you look at the overall, just common statistical numbers, 23 for 29, 226 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, also had 56 rushing yards on 4 carries. There's some, I think, more nuanced stats that we'll get to as we kind of talk about Caleb Williams here, but his best day as a pro, what did we see from Caleb Williams? What did you like? What is he building off of and how he's getting better to what we saw this past week against the Jags?
I think the thing that he never got enough credit for in college was his play in rhythm, where people just saw that. It's the same as Mahomes, right? People are just seeing, and Lamar and all the running quarterbacks, but it's people just see those highlights of him, making a guy miss in the backfield, doing some crazy throw outside the pocket or running outside the pocket. But when he's on it in terms of throwing in rhythm, he's amazing at it. He's super accurate, and he's really good at it. He's always been really good at it. He just understands that his escapability is going to lead to bigger plays if there's nothing for him early in the play. And so we're seeing that get better and better each week. Now it helps when your offensive line, remember him, like you said, in the Texans game, the offensive line was allowing clean pressure, right? This wasn't pressure that was happening after 2.5 seconds. This is pressure was happening right at the snap. That's going to be tough for any quarterback, especially a quarterback in the second start. Now the offensive line has played better. Now, given, the last 2 weeks have been against the Panthers and the Bengals. The Panthers and the Jaguars. So that is contextual there. But at the same time, if he's not feeling that quick pressure, and he can, I don't like my first read. Now I can move around in the pocket and I'm not already being harassed. You're going to see a lot of great plays. I don't think it's been perfect. I think there's been plays where he's missed. He's not seen open receivers. There's two kind of bad plays when the one he does throw an interception against Jacksonville, and then the one against Carolina, the first play of the game, he probably should have thrown a pick 6. But other than that, it's been really clean. He throws the ball accurately, he throws the ball hard. And like I said, when he's been in rhythm, the statistics kind of bear out how good he can be.
Yeah, it's really interesting just looking at the numbers, because when you look at the passing touchdowns and interceptions, he threw for 4 passing touchdowns in this one, just the 1 interception. It's 2 big-time throws and 1 turnover-worthy play that we have him marked down for in this game. But specifically, the average depth of target was only 5.7 in this game, by far his lowest of his career in the NFL. So when you talk about the in-rhythm passing, sort of that quick game there from him, he was very comfortable doing that, those quick throws. And I wonder if they're kind of building that in a little bit to just allow him to know, like, hey, the game of football is not always about you saying hike in the shotgun and then holding on to it for so long. And this is a natural progression for him to get more quick game just in his DNA, and sort of change how he views the game of, like, hey, it doesn't need to be that big play every time. We need to dial up big plays. Yeah, you've got that escapability to you, but it's not something that has to be necessarily built into the game plan every single time that you hike the ball. You don't want to take anything away from him, because he's a fantastic player, like you mentioned, especially when he's on the run. But I do think the offensive line playing better over the last 2 weeks. Okay, caliber competition, not great against the Carolina Panthers, but this past week against the Jags, not a terrible defensive line. You got Josh Hines-Allen, you got Trevor Walker coming off of his best game as a pro 2 weeks ago. So it's not like it was a terrible offensive line. It wasn't to Carolina's low standards, if you will. So the fact that Chicago's offensive line protected him better in London was great to see, because you mentioned it not being perfect. Something that I noticed from Caleb was it felt like just like a tick late getting to like that second read and third read, and it felt as though if the defensive line he was going up against was winning a little bit more quickly, a little bit more one-on-one, I think he kind of would have been in trouble more this past week. And the Jags just weren't really able to throw that at the Bears offensive line. So kudos to the Bears offensive line for playing well. And it allowed Caleb to, even though I felt like he was a little late getting from progression 2 to progression 3 to even then being like, okay, well, I got to just tuck this and run like we saw him do a couple of times that game. It allowed him to kind of go through this, and we saw great statistics from him because of that, and obviously we saw them get the win because of that. But that was sort of what I noticed. I liked the quicker game stuff, but it's still got to be faster for him when he is truly dropping back and scanning the field, and maybe that comes with recognizing things pre-snap a little bit better to be able to get things to post-snap a little bit quicker. But that was something that I still noticed from him, is still a little bit slow in making that decision to, okay, I got to get off read number 2, got to see if read number 3 is there, or, okay, read number 2 is not available, let me tuck it and run it. It was just still a little bit slow for me when it came to like overall processing and what I want to see from him moving forward. So it was great to see him have a good game and still have things to work on, but that's something that I noticed from Caleb in particular in this game.
And that's where like he hasn't even hit even close to his ceiling yet. Because there's plays there where he's getting off his first read or second read, he's scanning his eyes backwards and he's not quite seeing it yet. And once you start seeing that stuff, it's over. Because he's so good at resetting his feet and throwing to guys on the move that it's the sky really is the limit. I mean, look, he was a first overall pick. He was my number 1 player in the draft. I'm pretty sure he was your number 1 player in the draft. So like it was a no-brainer thing, and you know, we're always going to do the thing. Like, we're in the media, we're always going to do the overreaction thing early in the season, in either direction, right? We're doing it for Jaden Daniels in one direction. We did it for Caleb and probably some other quarterbacks in the other direction. So it's exciting. Like I said, I think there's still a lot to get better at. Now, my question for you is a little bit rhetorical. Mm-hmm. And we're supposed to be like guys who know a lot about football. However,
supposed to be.
If you could, like, you don't have to answer this question, but I don't want to put you on the spot. If you could tell me what the Shane Waldron offense is, like, thematically, could you answer? I can't.
It feels like it changes, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point that you bring up, because it does feel like it changes, and I don't know if that's a Shane still trying to figure it out with Caleb thing, because I think that is fair context, right? Caleb's coming into the NFL from a Lincoln Riley system that is sort of hard to replicate with how vertical it always is and how it's either like horizontal stuff that's very quick and you're not really getting into a lot of like quick game passing concepts. It's more of just like this is a quick throw, or you're hanging on to it. We're getting very vertical. We're taking a shot deep down the field. It felt like there just wasn't a ton of in between with what he was doing with Lincoln Riley's offense. And then you go to the NFL and it just doesn't really work like that. It's not that it's not, you can't take that mindset into the NFL and have that success. So it is a really interesting question because we have seen Waldron's offense change a lot even over these 6 weeks with the Bears. But I'll throw it right back at you and say, like, are there things like, for example, 5.7 average depth of target this week. It's his lowest of his NFL career. His adjusted completion percentage in this game was 95.8%. Now, adjusted completion percentage means you're not only taking away drops, but you're also taking away like throwaways, like things where you're just kind of getting rid of the ball. On genuine passes, 95.8% of his passes were completed. There's, I think, one. It's got to be just like one incompletion that he had, and the rest of them were right on target. So clearly he was feeling very comfortable. So is there something that you have seen from Shane Waldron throughout this season where you go, okay, like it's been different. It's been hard to put your finger on, okay, this is the passing identity of this team. But is there something, a concept, a thought process, an overall philosophy that you wish that they would lean more into as the second half of the season kind of comes to here?
So, well, the first thing is that thing that DJ Moore said this past week, which was they didn't script. Apparently, the first 4 weeks of the season, they didn't script the first 15 plays, which I don't know. Sure, like this guy's an NFL OC, so sure, but I thought all NFL OCs scripted the first 15 plays.
That's also what I thought. Yes.
But and the numbers kind of bear out how bad they were in the first 15 plays. They're like bottom 5 or bottom 10 in the league in efficiency in the first 15 in the first 4 games, and now they're top. The last 2 weeks, they're top half of the league in efficiency in the first 15. So like that alone is going to get you going forward to start the game. But one of the things that I did notice, and again, like what is the Shane Waldron offense? I literally have no idea. Again, I'm supposed to be this guy who knows all this stuff. I have no idea what the Shane Waldron offense is. I think, looking at the Seahawks this year, and that's where Shane Waldron was last year, I'm like, there's a lot of like the Geno offense. Like Geno likes certain stuff, and that's what you're going to put in the offense. So then, even looking at that, like I'm like, well, I don't even know what that. So I still don't know what the Waldron offense is. However, something that I really liked the last 2 weeks is their use of getting into condensed formations, stacks, bunches, and just kind of throwing all their kind of basic pass concepts with a little twist at the line of scrimmage, which was, a switch release, guy coming underneath, one of these type of situations. It's not just like ISO ball all the time. It's not, and that's kind of what this Geno offense is. Geno loves to be super spread, empty. Right. I want to be able to see the field like that. And maybe that's not ever going to be Caleb's thing. Maybe he will eventually. But so what you have to do now is like create free releases for your players, create indecision by the defense in terms of, like I said, switch releases and condensed formations and little quick motions and stuff like that. And I thought they were awesome, like really, really good at doing that type of stuff, especially against the Jaguars, but also against the Panthers. And is there like thematically, is that enough to say like that's the Shane Waldron offense? I'm not sure, but that was really good and it got people open. And he's also like, he's going to be one of those guys who eventually is going to start hitting. I just talked about this, and you said it too, but he is going to be one of those guys who eventually, if it's not there on one side of the field, he's going to be able to move his eyes back to the backside and find those in-breaking routes, and they have a lot of those in the offense too. So I think it's been really good in terms of what they're doing in the drop-back passing game to get guys open. And are we getting too many Keenan Allen targets at his age? It's probably okay, to be honest. Like I know that's been kind of a talking point. If it's 3rd and 2, yeah, I probably want to go to Keenan Allen on a quick slant and get him the ball there. So yeah, I think it's been really good. Like I said, the quick stuff to get guys open and stuff that's going to disguise what their intent is. And when I say disguise, I don't necessarily mean play action. It can mean kind of disguising a pass concept via formation and bunch and stack. So I think it's been really, really good, and it's helped them. It's helped them move the ball a ton.
You said it sort of earlier when we were talking about it, like the media, the fans, we all tend to overreact when it comes to the beginning of the season, things like that. But progression, right? And I think that we're there with Caleb Williams. He's been getting better every single week. I think Waldron, over the last couple of weeks has now been very comfortable. I think when you look at the Chicago Bears and kind of like what is coming up for this team, who do they play next week? They're on a bye next week. Okay, so they're on a bye next week after the London game, and then they play, who's week 8? The Commanders. They're on the road. They play the Commanders. Okay, that's another team that, like, coverage for the Commanders, you should be able to get after this team. And so I'm very curious, does the offensive identity sort of stay the same as what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, like you mentioned, with getting guys in sort of different positions, certainly at wide receiver to sort of disguise what you're doing a little bit, hitting the quick game a little bit better, and are we continuing to speed up that process for Caleb Williams when they come back onto the field in week 8? So I think that certainly worth highlighting the best day that he has had yet and sort of the reasons for that. It looked very... Well, I don't want to say this. I don't want to say it looked like a non-Caleb Williams game because there were also some major big-time throws in this one. He had 2 big-time throws. I mean, the touchdown throw to Keenan Allen was just an absolute laser. I mean, that was beautiful. When a team is running, and I'm pretty sure this is what it was, although I didn't go back and like just study it intently, but I'm pretty sure they were running like Tampa 2 at that sense because the middle linebacker dropped immediately to take Keenan Allen as he was going up the middle of the field. You still had the 2 safeties. So in reality, the route from Keenan Allen was supposed to split the 2 safeties getting into the end zone, but then you had the Mike linebacker immediately dropping as well. So to put that football where he did for Keenan Allen to catch it in between 2 safeties and even beyond the reach of the linebacker and the lower level, like the middle zone at the second level from the other line. I mean, it's just a nuts throw. So we saw some really great moments from Caleb Williams, but do we get to see more of that? Okay, I'm very comfortable taking these things underneath. I'm letting my guys win. And you mentioned, all right, do you want Keenan Allen getting this many targets? 5 targets this past game. That was a team high. It was tied with Cole Kmet, but they were spreading the ball around a lot. Like DJ Moore was getting plenty of looks as well. The running backs were getting looks in the passing game. And so they were spreading the wealth. I thought it was very in rhythm, kind of how you started off this segment. Do we see that same in rhythm play after the bye week, after a lot of time off? That will be a telltale sign of sort of if he is hitting the ground running and can have a second half season like what we saw from Jordan Love or like what we saw from CJ Stroud. Guys like that will be very interesting to see. I do want to talk about Lamar Jackson because he won MVP last year and he is having an even better season 6 weeks through the year at this point in time. But before we get to him, best part about football season, always about checking out the post-game stats, right? So which wide receiver scored more than 2 touchdowns, which quarterbacks threw for more or less than 350 yards. If you think you can pick what's going to happen before kickoff, you got to download Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now, and you just select between 2 to 6 players. Choose if they will have more or less than a single stat. That is it. For the first time Pick 6 players, you check this out. New customers, they play $5 on the first Pick 6 set. You get 50 in Pick 6 credits right there when you do that. We just talked about the Chicago Bears, how well they are spreading the wealth around. If you see a couple of lines where like, man, a couple of Chicago Bears receivers, I feel like their stats are pretty low. I got to bet more on this. Boom, there you go. That's 2 players right there. So if you got faith that the Chicago Bears offense is going to continue to be on a roll, go check out Pick 6. See if there's a couple of things when they come out against the Washington Commanders might be able to exploit and win you a little bit of cash. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF for new customers to play just $5 on your first Pick 6 set, and then you get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions do vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire within 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.com. Pick6.draftkings.com. I always mess that up. It's always the DraftKings before the .com. Pick6.draftkings.com/promos. One day I'll get it right, Seth. One day. But that's not today. Lamar Jackson wins MVP, obviously. Heard of him. Pretty good. Second MVP that he won in 2023. This year, Seth looks even better. I mean, through 6 weeks of the season. Now, Lamar was able to really catch fire last year toward the second half of the season. But through the first 6 weeks of 2023 and the first 6 weeks of 2024, he's thrown for more passing yards. He's got more passing touchdowns. Doesn't have as many big-time throws, but he's got 7 big-time throws compared to 10 big-time throws that he had last year. But the turnover-worthy plays, he only has 2 turnover-worthy plays this year, and he had 8 at this point in time last year. And Seth, the 2 turnover-worthy plays that he had were in week 1 against the Chiefs. Hasn't had one since. Not to say every pass has been perfect, but like true turnover-worthy plays. This guy's playing incredible football. It truly feels like Lamar, he has overcome the draft status of everybody, sort of doubting him in the draft. And then he wins the early MVP and what the Ravens were as a rushing attack with him as a rushing quarterback and the element that he played there. Then, he's got the MVP season last year and he justifies the big, massive contract. He wins MVP as a passer more so than a runner, even though he's a fantastic dual threat. And now, Seth, this year, it just feels like, certainly with Derrick Henry there as well and how well they're running the ball, it feels like he is playing with house money the rest of his career. He already knows, I have overcome all of these things. I have proven all of these doubters wrong. Now it's just about how good my game can possibly get. And it feels like this is the most efficient Lamar that we have seen yet, which is scary with him coming off of an MVP trophy. So talk to me about Lamar Jackson, what you have seen so far from him this year, and if he deserves to be an MVP frontrunner once again here in 2024.
Are you asking me if Lamar Jackson deserves to be an MVP frontrunner? The answer is obviously yes. He's really good. I don't even think I think there are still stuff, whether it's in like roster construction or even his own game, that I think having a chance to get better. But right now, the stuff that he's doing. So I'll talk about this offense as a whole, because I think it's important to know that this is an offense that does not go backwards. That is so important. They have one of the lowest rate of negative runs in the league. I think they're bottom 5. Mm-hmm. They have the highest or the least, the lowest sack rate in the league. So those are negative plays. So they're never in 3rd and longs. They're never in 2nd and longs. Not to mention that they also have explosiveness in their offense as well. But they're never in very bad situations. And a lot of that is obviously Lamar Jackson, in the run game, his ability to create gravity that leads to positive runs for Derrick Henry. There's also, the Derrick Henry, who's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
He creates positive runs as well. And then there's his ability to not take sacks, and his completion percentage isn't amazing, but it's very good, but it's not at the top of the league.
Right. So
there's just not a lot of 0 or negative plays in this offense. They have taken some penalties, which they'll love to clean up. But besides that, there's just they're always in positive situations on offense, and that just leads to. And again, it's not just, and that's not to say, oh well, look at Lamar in these positive. He's only getting positive situations. He's the one that's keeping them in positive situations. And where he's been amazing is throwing guys accurately on the move and giving them yak opportunities over the middle of the field. Loves these crossing routes, loves all that stuff. We got the last 2 weeks where Zay Flowers looks like a #1 receiver again. Mm-hmm. I don't know how often that continues. I think that's kind of probably going to be Zay Flowers' career. Where every once in a while, you're like, wow, this guy is the best player in the league. And then sometimes you just have off weeks, I guess, from him. But yeah, Lamar is just throwing guys open. That's the main thing. And that started a bit last year, where you could see his accuracy on these throws that are crossing the field, let's say, or drags and crossing routes and stuff like that, in routes are just tremendous. I mean, it's top of the league stuff. Now, when I say that there's stuff that I think they can improve, roster construction, I still think, and I really like Bateman and Flowers and Likely and Andrews. We've been saying it for a long time. I think it's still true. I think Lamar needs a big body X type of receiver. He needs what we've all hoped Nelson Aguilar eventually turn into, which really hasn't happened. But like that's a type of receiver that he kind of needs for this offense to go even to the next level. Maybe they don't need it. Maybe this is still like one of the best offenses we've ever seen. I think like probably in the playoffs, and we saw them get out physicaled last year by the Chiefs in the playoffs, and even week 1 this year. They're gonna play the Chiefs in the playoffs again. So like you're gonna need that big body receiver who can go and catch Lamar's vertical throws down the sideline, which is something they've never had. I don't think Lamar is a great thrower of those type of balls. He's okay, but he's not top of the league. And I think a lot of that is the receiver play. Like when you talk about vertical throws, the more vertical a throw is, the more that's on the receiver. So yes, we grade the quarterback. Yes, we grade the receiver, but at the same time, like we're not great at divvying up the responsibility when it comes to ball tracking. So like Lamar doesn't do well on those type of throws, but I do think a lot of that is the receivers that he's throwing the ball to. So give him a big body receiver. We'll see if that changes. But other than that, so like I said, like there's so much to like, and yet I still think we're not even at the ceiling of what this offense could be, which is scary, very scary.
Yeah, I think that certainly the heavy personnel stuff, they're certainly masters of. You talked about last segment, Shane Waldron, right? Like, what's the offensive identity here? There's not really a wonder of what the offensive identity is for the Baltimore Ravens. One, they're going to be a heavy running team. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run it with Lamar. They're going to run it with Derrick Henry. They're going to establish things up front. But they're also going to run heavy personnel stuff. Obviously, they have Zay Flowers, who want to get the ball in his hands at all times. He's going to be their heavy target guy. They're going to let him be a yards after a catch type of a player. But they line an identity as heavy personnel stuff. It's multiple tight ends. It's Mark Andrews. It's Isaiah Likely. They're throwing Charlie Kolar into the mix now. You got 3 tight ends that you can go to at any point in time. And so even when Mark Andrews wasn't playing well, it's like Charlie Kolar's in there. They know their identity really, really well. And going back to sort of what I was saying at the beginning, the confidence of Lamar, it's almost like he's playing his career with house money at this point because he's already proven everybody wrong. And now it's just like, all right, well, how well can I operate sort of what we're doing now at this point? So I think that having confidence in the environment that he is in with a heavier personnel team has been fantastic, especially because I think it's a great point that you make. The horizontal throws, the crossers, whether it's whether it's mesh concept stuff or whether it's intermediate or deep crossers, dig routes over the middle, whatever, like it's a backside route, like whatever it is, he's fantastic at throwing those touch passes in particular over the middle. So a lot of times, like when you have crossers, it's like, okay, well, the crosser's sort of starting out at the line of scrimmage, and then like I'm getting up to the second level. Now I'm sort of like getting behind the second level, and then the route gets a little bit flexible of like, okay, I need to veer it a little bit deeper, a little bit more shallow to create the throwing window. And for quarterbacks, it's tough to layer those throws in between where a safety is and where the linebackers are. And to me, it's specifically more difficult when you're talking about a horizontal throw one way or another, because not only are you having to gauge the touch on the pass to put it where it needs to go, you're also needing to gauge the speed of the receiver to hit them in stride or get them to where they are creating that throwing window one way or the other. And Lamar is really good at that. He's really good at that. It's why touch, you talk about evaluation for quarterbacks and going back to like the NFL draft and things like that. Touch is such a major part of how I grade these guys, because often you can work on repetition, right? You can work on, all right, if I'm throwing this guy a fastball, it's a 2-step drop, and then, like 2.6 seconds into the route, boom, it's coming out of my hands. The guy's going to be there because we've worked on it so many times. We've practiced this so many times. It's muscle memory. Touch, I mean, it's sort of muscle memory, but often it is something in the moment where you just have to look at it and be like, yep, this guy's going it this way, at this angle, at this speed. There's the ball. It's going straight to where it needs to go, and it's going in the breadbasket. It's so tough to replicate those things, even with a ton of repetition in training camp and in practice and all of that. So it often just comes down to it's a great showcase of these are the best natural passers. And Lamar is really good at those types of passes. So to me, it's this combination. Him having this MVP caliber season is sort of a combination of a lot of things, but it's just this uber confidence in what they are as an offense, and then of course like what he is at his strengths as a touch passer that I think is yielding some of the highest efficiency numbers that we have seen. Like I mentioned, the big time throws are a little bit further down, but the turnover worthy plays are also way down compared to last year. And like I mentioned, over the last 5 weeks, he doesn't have one. So Lamar's been nuts. Like you kind of laughed about there as we kind of open up the segment. Of course he's an MVP candidate. Like, of course he is an MVP front runner. Like, he is playing one of the best. And when I was just looking at some of the numbers, I mean, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, certainly with how hot he's playing. I don't know if he'll win MVP just because I don't know if the team's going to be good enough. But, I mean, he is playing fantastic. Brock Purdy's playing really well as well. Oh, who was the other quarterback that was right there? Oh, there was somebody else that was right there when it came to like overall grade, when I was just looking at like MVP conversation stuff. Obviously, like Mahomes is in that conversation as well, but it's kind of like that, those bunches of guys at the quarterback position that are really standing out here early on in the season that Lamar is, I think Lamar is at the top of the list of all of those quarterbacks. So I think he's the front runner right now.
I would probably put him. The guy you're talking about is our highest graded passer, Derek Carr, the MVP of the league, Derek Carr. Okay, buddy.
Hey, don't swing your shoulders like that.
I don't think Derek Carr is going to win the MVP.
I don't think so either.
Let me put that out into the ether. That I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I think he's up there. I think like it's going to be tough because, like you said, the one guy, like the two guys that are interesting for MVP, I'll say three guys because you have Brock, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes because of all three of them because of the record, right? Like, Burrow and this offense has been elite since T. Higgins came back, but they're just probably not going to get enough wins. I can see them making the playoffs, but I don't know if they'll have enough wins. So really, it's going to come down to Lamar, Brock, and Mahomes again. Who else?
Stroud and Daniels. Those are the other two. Those are the other two that were. I mean, Stroud's also playing incredibly well, so can absolutely see C.J. Stroud being in that conversation. Jaden's obviously played really well over the last 3 weeks. We'll see if that continues for them. But to me, certainly at the quarterback position, that's the MVP conversation right now. It's Brock Purdy, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Lamar Jackson, it's C.J. Stroud, and it's Jaden Daniels. Like, it's those five guys that I think are at the MVP conversation. And again, I'd put Lamar at number one. If I was power ranking them right now, I would put Lamar at number one. I do want to talk about Aaron Rodgers as well as the final quarterback that we're going to get to here. But before we get to Aaron Rodgers, podcast is brought to you by Sherry Bundy, the performance drink fueling the health-lete revolution. Slammed one of these bad boys yesterday, and it was after a workout, and I'm not going to lie. Tasted fantastic, felt fantastic. It's great. Natural product, natural ingredients, no added sugars. The tart cherries, highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. It's got the natural anti-inflammatory in it as well, which it'll reduce soreness, increase recovery. It's got the natural melatonin to help you improve sleep as well, helps immunity. It's used by almost 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. They are all over the map. They are helping the best of the best recover from workouts. So if you live an active lifestyle at all whatsoever, check out Cherry Bundy. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions have used their product. 66 out of 67 Power 4 conference football teams as well. The products are available at Amazon, cherrybundy.com, retailers nationwide, Publix, Kroger, that good stuff. So check it out. It's not just the drink, but I had the drink yesterday, and it was fantastic. I got to try the rest of their products. You see, they got the protein, they got the sleep, they got the recovery, they got everything. So check out cherrybundy.com. It tastes fantastic. It's good for macros, and of course, it's got a lot of really great health benefits as well. So even if you're just somebody who, hey, I start my morning or end my day with a little bit of a walk, things like that, like anything to help the muscles out, help you sleep a little bit better, it'll always be great for you. So check out cherrybundy.com and get yourself some good recovery products. So the New York Jets fall.
Trevor.
Yes.
For the second week in a row, we have breaking New York Jets news.
What happened?
As we're talking about the Jets.
What happened?
Davante Adams is a New York Jet.
No, it happened.
No.
Let's go. I was going to ask you that on the show. Dude, the Jets are back against the wall mode with that game. Not that the trade manifested for the first time since the game struck 0 last night in the loss, but you know that they have talked about Davante Adams before. But okay, so this is a perfect way to segue this conversation because we have Robert Saleh is out. Nate Hackett's out as play caller. It's Todd Downing as the play caller there. It's Jeff Ulbricht as the head coach. So my question to you, in a game that, I'm sorry, Buffalo Bills fans, I don't mean to take anything away from you. I feel like the Jets should have won that football game. It was close, but I feel like the Jets squandered more opportunities than necessarily the Buffalo Bills did. There were a lot of penalties in that game, so I guess it could go either way. Bills fans are going to be mad at me. I know. But when you look at this Jets team and how they played on Monday Night Football, did it look different for you? Did the Jets offense look different for you making the changes? And then we'll get into sort of how Davante Adams kind of comes into this.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like from the 10,000-foot view, I wasn't like, oh my God, this is a completely different offense. And I don't think there was ever a chance that was going to be the case. And I think with football, one of the issues is you just can't change your offense in a week. And I was talking to some guys yesterday who played major college football, and they were like talking about offensive line play, and they were like, whenever we tried to do something that wasn't on a week-to-week basis, whenever we tried to do something that wasn't the stuff that we practiced from August all the way through the season, they had so much trouble. So when you look at this Jets offense, it's like, well, they can't do that much different things. And so I don't think we saw anything like, I'm sure there was conceptually little details that are different. I'm sure. I'm not smart enough to understand that stuff. But what we did see was Rodgers not taking just quote unquote easy one-on-one throws down the sideline. And one of the things that Rodgers had done this year was he actually had more throws this season than any other player on kind of go routes, sideline go routes, back shoulders, end zone fades. And he was like he graded well, but the results weren't there. And he didn't have that type of player because he threw a lot of those back shoulders to Garrett Wilson. That's not the type of player that Garrett Wilson is. Mike Williams is more of that type of player, though obviously that connection with Mike Williams has not been there at all this season. Lazard's not that type of player either. So you're trying all these throws that just don't have a big success rate. And I think with Rodgers, one of the things we've always talked about with Rodgers was the back shoulder throws.
Right.
But when you look at it statistically, like he actually had more back shoulder throws this season going into this game, and actually now after this game, they did all of his last full season, 2022. So like it's not really been they're very memorable, but it hasn't been a very big part volume wise of the Rodgers offense. So now for him to just kind of be throwing all those balls up and they haven't been working, we just didn't see that yesterday. That's important. There's still a lot of like tough throws that he makes, like all the like Lazard. There's the Lazard insane throw where he puts it on the linebacker's hip. There's all these throws to Lazard for some reason. That's not good. But a lot of throws to Lazard in the seam between the two safeties. He did throw the interception trying to do that last week versus Minnesota. But those are the throws that Rodgers, when he hits on those throws, they're going to be a good offense. The issue is those throws come with big hits. You saw it on Ruckert, drop ball. You see it on Garrett Wilson in the end zone, drop ball. Those are kind of the concerns that I continue to have. But it did feel like, to be honest, it did feel like there was less. I'm half, we don't have any stats on this, so like I'm half kind of doing this by memory, but like it felt like there was a lot less Aaron Rodgers going to the line, checking to his own play, and then doing all that stuff. Like in the LaFleur offense where he was a two-time MVP, like there was a lot of LaFleur scheme stuff that brought him to that level. You add the scheme stuff plus Aaron Rodgers, like we can have an MVP level player there. And with Hackett the first 5 weeks, it was just Rodgers kind of being this sentient guy that sentient. There was a term that I think Mike McCarthy used in that article that came out a few years ago about how the end of the McCarthy Rodgers era. He's like a sentient computer playing quarterback, and like or sentient offensive coordinator playing quarterback, something like that. But like we didn't see that as much yesterday. I think that's probably a good thing.
There were some sick throws that he made against the Buffalo Bills, but it's not like that was unfamiliar. I think that certainly your point about the offense looking different because it's relying maybe a little less on those outside one-on-one balls. Like, yeah, you still got to win. It's still it feels like a one-on-one offense, and honestly, like getting Davante Adams, it's only going to become more of a one-on-one offense, right? Because you're going to have faith in your guy to be able to win those one-on-ones. So I'm very curious now, after one game of Todd Downing and Aaron Rodgers sort of not really calling those outside back shoulder one-on-one balls, against the Buffalo Bills, how much does that change here now? Like, how much does Davante Adams, because now you got to think of it. Lazard's in this offense as well. I understand that. But you have Mike Williams on one side, you have Davante Adams on the other, and you have Garrett Wilson anywhere in between, right?
Mike Williams is the guy out at this point because Rodgers trusts Lazard so much that
fair.
He's not coming out of the offense. Like it's not like it won't be Lazard, and the connection between him and Mike Williams hasn't been there. Obviously, I assume some of that has to do with the ACL, some of it just has to do with whatever the connection is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty much putting in. You're gonna in 3 receiver sets. It's gonna be Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and Mike Williams. I'm sure. I'm sorry, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and Davante Adams. Like there's no way Rodgers is putting Alan Lazard on the bench. So those are going to be your 3 receivers and 4 receiver packages, which is the main package that they have on offense.
It is
I don't know. I think this is obviously a good move. I like that the Jets are going for it. I think they have no other choice, even at 2-4. Like there's no rebuild, right? Like this is it. Right. You better go for it. They're in a tough spot. I keep falling back on the same thing with this offense trade, which is like there's so much damn talent on this team that I'll still kind of believe in them to a certain degree. And now you've added even more talent. So it's good. Like they needed to do it.
The timing of it is very interesting because also this morning they give Hassan Reddick and now Drew Rosenhaus, who is his new agent, permission to seek a trade. So it's like, are they very comfortable trading Hassan Reddick now because they know they're going to get draft picks back, and that's what makes up for trading a draft pick and the salary cap compensation wise, financially, that you're just like subbing Hassan Reddick out. And so part of me thinks like, oh, okay, well this means Hassan Reddick is gone. But the defensive line for the Jets is actually more of an issue than receiver is. So like you said, if you're the Jets, you've got to be completely all in. You have to just sell everything you can when it comes to like reservations and like, oh, well, what about the salary cap, in 2 to 3 years? Like you were very clearly just in the Super Bowl window. Go all the way in on it. And we joked that Davante Adams was going to become a Jet when he first demanded a trade, but that always seemed like the most likely. And for New York, a team that was struggling in that regard, I do think that it looked better for them last week, though. Or sorry, this past week, I should say, on Monday Night Football against the Bills because of sort of what you said. They did look more explosive. They certainly blocked better for Breece Hall, which was nice. The red zone stuff, I think in particular, they have to get a lot better at. They're not horrible at it, but they're not as good as they could be. And certainly when you see that massive Breece Hall run and he's got one guy to beat and he doesn't beat him, and then all of a sudden like you can't score in the red zone. I mean, that's an issue for you. Like that's a play that there's got to be 6, and if it's not, you've got to have a player like Davante Adams who you could at least go to 1 or 2 times in the passing game and have a lot of faith there. So this is big for them, obviously, and it's going to yield whatever the best results of Aaron Rodgers are going to be because we've already seen that in Green Bay.
So just reading it, I think it's a conditional pick that they're giving up, but they are taking all of Davante Adams' salary, which, like, to be honest, like, who cares? Again, like, you go over, like just go over this, like, pay as much money as you want because it doesn't really matter because if it doesn't work out, you're in a full rebuild for a few years. Like, so you might as well try and win this thing this season. at 2-4, it's tough, right? Like that's the issue. You lose a close game this week. You lost a close game last week where an interception to Mike Williams on a target to Mike Williams to end the game the last 2 weeks. I'm not saying it's Mike Williams' fault per se, but two close games. And like at 2-4, again, I believe in the talent on this team, offense and defense, but it's like there's just not a lot of teams that have come back from 2-4 and made the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's really going to be the issue. They still have to get better at running the football. Like this was a game where they had some explosive runs they haven't had this year, especially Breece Hall. We saw it down the sideline. You take away those two runs, and not that we should take away those two runs, but you take away those two runs and they weren't really running the football that well. So like 5.4 yards per carry or something like that yesterday. You take out those two runs, it goes down to like 2 yards per carry, which is like exactly where they've been this whole season. They need to get better at running the football. But passing game is probably going to be elite going forward. It was elite last night. A lot of big plays. Now, Hail Mary has a lot to do with that. We haven't talked about
That's true. That's true. It does. You're right.
Hail Mary, classic Rodgers, just like throwing the ball up there. And I think my favorite thing there was like a shift when Rodgers was throwing those, like back in the day, like the Jeff Janis and Richard Rodgers ones. It was like, I'm going to throw it to the kind of front of the end zone, and I'm going to get a guy to body kind of in exactly the way that Lazard caught it. Like, I'm just going to go backwards into that pile.
Yeah.
And make the catch. And they did it again. They just did it again. But yeah, I think this offense passing game is going to be elite. I think the run game is where they're going to have some troubles because they just can't be we talked about it with the Ravens. Like, Ravens are going forward on every run. The Jets are generally going backwards on every run, or at least setting up longer yardage second downs and third downs. That's not fair on a 40-year-old quarterback. He's going to get them out of jams because he's that good, but they still need to be better going forward. So, yes, Davante is going to make them probably an elite passing attack, I would assume, but they need to be better running the football.
Yep. It's sort of, I think we all knew this was an inevitable with Davante Adams, but it does feel like a luxury addition, right? It's just, can we make this strength even stronger to make up for weaknesses? Normally when you see trades at the trade deadline or trades around this time of year, you're trying to mitigate weaknesses, right? Well, the Jets are trying to make a strength even stronger because the defensive line is really struggling with their injuries, and it's not the same unit that it was last year. The secondary, even though DJ Reed's playing well, Sauce Gardner's not playing as well. And then the run game, they're not running the ball as well as they need to. So the fundamental core parts of play in the game, they're struggling at, and they're just hoping that their passing game can make up for it with an addition like Davante Adams. There we go. We talked about Caleb Williams. We talked about Lamar Jackson, and we have talked about Aaron Rodgers now with his new/old wide receiver in Davante Adams. Very much looking for. We've talked about Rodgers a lot on this quarterback showcase, and Seth, with this trade, something tells me we're probably going to continue to talk about Aaron Rodgers in the future. So hope you're cool with that, because with Davante Adams trade, it's only going to get more.
The nice thing about talking about Aaron Rodgers is you can't fall in the middle anywhere with Aaron Rodgers. It's extreme in either direction. Last week I was yelling at him for all the awfulness that was their offense versus the Vikings. And this week it's like, wow, these are some sick throws down the middle of the field. Like, every play is a sick damn throw. So like, it's exciting always and like I said, like with Davante. Now, I will say, like, sorry, I'm very curious to see how this is going to look, because we've seen Davante with Aaron Rodgers, obviously, before. We've never seen Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and Garrett Wilson. Like, where does this all come together? And obviously you would assume, like, you're going to get a lot less Garrett Wilson targets. I mean, that's just how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. Clearly, they haven't been on the same page. They were a lot better last night. Troy Aikman talked about it. Like, they just not. There's been something wrong with all of the receivers in terms of being on the same page, but like Garrett Wilson especially. So that's to me is the interesting thing, is how do you make those three guys work in tandem? But we'll see.
It's going to be one of those things where it's like, if it's working out well, we're not going to be able to talk enough about it, like how sick the offense is and how incredible the offense is. And if it's not working out well, everybody's just going to be like, well, Garrett needs more targets. Well, Davante needs more targets. We get Alan Lazard back involved. And it's just going to be all these.
No one outside of Aaron Rodgers himself has ever said the words Alan Lazard needs more targets.
Look, but clearly he said it a lot. So, that's all I'm doing on this show.
He wakes up from his naps and his sleeps going like in a cold sweat, being like, I need to throw to Alan Lazard between the safeties every play.
And it's going to burn Jets Twitter alive if Garrett Wilson gets his targets cut, but not the Alan Lazard targets. Like Lazard still stays the number 2 on the team. Davante becomes the number 1, and then Garrett Wilson becomes the number 3. I hope for Jets fans that that's not the case. I appreciate everybody watching and listening to the Quarterback Showcase. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Seth Galina. We will see you same time, perhaps to talk about Aaron Rodgers and other quarterbacks next week after Week 7. We'll see you guys then.